My name is Brielle Dawson. I'm 34, a senior compliance officer at our family firm, and I have never taken an unscheduled day off in 12 years. At exactly 6:30 a.m., my phone rang. The name on the screen froze me in place. Mason. My younger brother Mason, the one I hadn't spoken to in 9 years, not since Dad threw him out and told the rest of us he no longer existed. I picked up. "Don't go to work today," he said, voice low, almost shaking. "Just stay home, please." "Mason, what the hell is going on?" Silence. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone, heart already racing. Something in his tone told me this wasn't a prank. I texted my manager that a family emergency came up and I wouldn't be in. Then I waited. By noon, I understood why he sounded so scared. If you want to know what the FBI told me when they called, and why my own blood just tried to destroy my life, stay until the end, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Because what happened next didn't just ruin one day, it ended the family I thought I had. The house felt too quiet after I hung up with Mason. I paced the kitchen trying to make sense of it all, when memories from 5 months ago came rushing back. Dad's funeral had been hard enough, but what happened at the lawyer's office the next day was worse. The will got read earlier than anyone expected because Trish insisted on it. My aunt Trish Whitaker, Dad's sister-in-law and the family accountant for 20 years, stood up right there in front of everyone and demanded to see the documents immediately. When the lawyer announced that Dad left his entire 38% stake in Dawson Holdings to me, valued at nearly $400 million, Trish's face turned white. Her son, Ryan Whitaker, my cousin Ryan, who ran operations at the firm, slammed his fist on the table and walked out without a word. The room went silent except for Trish whispering something about ungrateful children under her breath. From that day on, family gatherings felt tense, and Trish stopped returning my calls. I shook off the memory and grabbed my laptop to check emails. That's when I noticed something was wrong with my backup account, the one I used for two-factor authentication on everything important. The password had been changed overnight, and the recovery email pointed to an address I'd never seen. In compliance work, that's a massive red flag. Someone had hacked in deep enough to lock me out of my own security. My stomach dropped as I tried logging into the company portal and got the same error. Then I picked up my phone to check the banking app. It had logged me out completely with a message saying, "Suspicious activity detected from new device." I hadn't touched it since last night. I reset the password twice, but each time it failed verification. These weren't random glitches. This was deliberate and coordinated. Around 10 that morning, I noticed the black SUV again. It had been parked across the street for 3 days straight. Tinted windows, Texas plates I couldn't quite read from my window. Yesterday I'd jotted down what I could and ran it through a public VIN lookup but got nothing useful. Today it sat at a slightly different angle, like whoever was inside wanted a clearer view of my front door. I decided to test something. I grabbed my keys and walked out, pretending to check the mail. The SUV's engine started immediately and it pulled away slowly, following me down the block before turning off toward the highway. My hands shook as I hurried back inside and double-locked everything. By 11, I was on my third cup of coffee when I started reviewing security footage from the doorbell camera. 2 nights ago, a figure in dark clothes had walked right up to my front window, close enough to touch the glass, then disappeared into the shadows. No face visible, but the build matched someone who'd been at Dad's funeral. I saved the clip to a thumb drive just in case. That's when my phone rang at exactly 11:38 a.m. The caller ID showed a Washington, D.C. area code. I answered cautiously. "This is Special Agent Daniel Harris with the FBI Dallas Field Office," he said, his voice calm but official. "We're conducting a federal investigation into Dawson Holdings. Are you Brielle Dawson, the senior compliance officer?" I gripped the counter to steady myself. "Yes, that's me. What's this about?" "We're not at liberty to discuss details over the phone at this stage," he replied. "But We need to confirm your availability for follow-up questions in the next few hours. Have you been in contact with anyone from the company today? No, I said, my mind racing. I took a personal day. There was a brief pause. Understood. We'll be in touch shortly. The line went dead, and I stood there staring at the phone. Federal investigation, my family's company. And Mason's warning that morning suddenly felt like the only thing keeping me one step ahead of whatever was coming. By 11:55 a.m., the same agent called back. This time, everything changed. I was still standing in the kitchen holding the phone from the first call when it rang again with the same DC number. I answered before the second ring ended. Ms. Dawson, this is Special Agent Harris again, he said, and the calm tone from 17 minutes earlier had vanished. We now have reason to believe you may be in immediate danger, and we need you to listen carefully. My knees weakened and I sank onto a bar stool. Danger from what exactly? He didn't waste words. Between 4:07 and 4:42 this morning, $58 million was wired from Dawson Holdings' corporate accounts to several shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Every single transfer was authorized using your credentials, your digital signature, and a voice verification that matches your recorded voice 100%. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. $58 million. My voice. My signature. I hadn't even woken up until Mason called. Harris continued without pausing. A senior fraud analyst at the receiving bank flagged the pattern and contacted the Dallas field office directly. That report gave us probable cause for an emergency raid on company headquarters that started at 6:30 a.m. We have security footage showing your keycard being used to enter the building at 4:12 a.m. Your login from the executive floor workstation at 4:15 and biometric confirmation on the voice calls to the bank at 4:28 and 4:35. All of it ties back to you. That's impossible, I finally managed. I was home asleep. My car never left the garage. There was a short silence on the line, the kind that feels heavier than words. We recovered the vehicle in the executive parking garage. It arrived at 4:03 a.m., according to the gate camera. The driver is not clearly visible, but the plates are registered to you. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles went white. Someone had my car, my keycard, my voice, or something that sounded exactly like it, and had walked through every layer of security we spent years building. Harris's voice dropped lower. The U.S. Attorney has already signed a material witness warrant, and a federal arrest warrant is being processed as we speak. Right now, your name is on every law enforcement database in the country for suspected money laundering and wire fraud. Units are en route to your residence. I felt the room tilt. You think I stole $58 million from my own family company before breakfast? I'm telling you what the evidence shows at this moment, he answered. And I'm telling you that if someone is sophisticated enough to clone your voice and access, they may not want you around to contradict the story they're building. My pulse hammered in my ears. Deepfake voice technology had been all over the news lately. Criminals using AI to imitate CEOs and empty corporate accounts. I'd even written a risk memo about it last quarter. I never thought the target would be me. How long do I have? I asked. Surprised my voice still worked. Minutes, not hours, Harris said. Do not open the door for anyone claiming to be law enforcement unless they can provide the case number I'm about to give you. Write this down, DF 2025-0417. If they can't recite it, do not engage. I repeated the number back to him while scribbling it on the back of an envelope. One more thing, he added. If someone warned you to stay home this morning, you might want to listen to them right now. The call ended and I stood frozen, the envelope trembling in my hand. $58 million gone. My credentials used at 4 in the morning. My face about to be on every wanted bulletin from here to the border. And the only person who had tried to warn me was the brother my family erased 9 years ago. I hadn't even put the phone down when the doorbell rang 3 times. Fast, urgent, like someone was leaning on the button. I froze. Harris had just warned me units were coming. Through the peephole, I saw a man in a dark hoodie cap, pulled low, face turned slightly away from the camera. My heart slammed against my ribs until he lifted his head, and I saw the same hazel eyes I remembered from childhood. I yanked the door open. Standing on my porch was my younger brother Mason Dawson, 29 years old, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him. He had a week-old beard and a scar over his left eyebrow that hadn't been there before. "Brielle, let me in," now he said under his breath, already pushing past me into the foyer and shutting the door behind him. I stood there speechless while he scanned the living room like he expected someone else to jump out. "We have maybe 5 minutes. Pack nothing. We're leaving." "Mason, what are you doing here?" My voice cracked. "Dad said you were gone for good." He gave a bitter laugh that held no humor at all. "Dad said a lot of things to keep me alive. Sit down for 30 seconds and listen, because I'm only saying this once." He dropped a worn backpack on the floor and crouched in front of me. When I was 20, I found proof that Trish and Ryan had been siphoning money out of the company for years. I took it straight to Dad. Instead of calling the police, he told me to disappear. Said if I stayed, they would kill me to keep me quiet. So he paid for a new name, new social everything. I've been moving every 6 to 12 months ever since. Last year, 2 guys in Denver tried to run me off the road. I'm pretty sure Trish hired them. I stared at him, trying to process the fact that my little brother had been living like a ghost while I sat in board meetings pretending everything was fine. Dad knew. Mason nodded. He found listening devices in the lake house and the ranch. He never told you because he thought you were safer not knowing. 6 months before he died, he started reaching out through burner phones. Told me Trish and Ryan were getting desperate. The company audits were closing in, and they needed a scapegoat. He made me memorize an encrypted journal and the exact location of a safe deposit box only you can open. He said when they finally moved on you, I was to get you out and get you to that box. My head spun. All those years I thought Mason had just walked away from the family. Turns out the family had walked away from him to save his life. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. "This is the address and the box number. Dad changed the access code to your birthday backwards so no one else could guess it. Everything we need to bury them is inside." Why didn't he tell me any of this? Because he was trying to protect you the same way he protected me. Mason set eyes hard. And because he knew you'd never believe your perfect aunt and cousin could be capable of it. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner. I only got the final go signal 2 nights ago." He stood up and glanced out the window. "Clock's ticking. They know I'm here. We have to move." I looked at the stranger who used to steal my cereal every morning and realized he was the only person in the world who had never stopped looking out for me, even when it cost him everything. Less than 10 minutes later, we heard SUVs pulling up fast. Mason was already moving. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the garage through the laundry room I rarely used. The side door led straight to his beat-up gray Tacoma parked behind the trash bins where no street camera could see it. We slid inside and he turned the key before I even had my seatbelt on. 2 black Suburbans screeched to a halt in front of the house just as we rolled backward down the driveway. "Hold on," he muttered and floored it. We shot out of the cul-de-sac, tires squealing on the hot asphalt. In the rearview mirror, I watched 4 men in dark windbreakers spill out of the vehicles and run toward the front door. One of them looked up and pointed straight at us. Mason took the corner hard, throwing me against the door, and merged onto the service road that ran parallel to the neighborhood. He reached under the seat and pulled out a small black box with blinking red lights. "GPS jammer," he said, flipping a switch. "Illegal as hell in the States, but it scrambles everything within 50 yards. Bought it south of the border last year. They won't track us through the toll tags or the truck's built-in system." The dashboard went dark where the navigation screen used to be. I gripped the handle above the door as he wove through midday traffic on the Sam Rayburn tollway, staying just under 80 so we wouldn't attract state troopers. Every few seconds he checked the mirrors. "Talk to me," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted. What exactly is in that box in Plano? Mason kept his eyes on the road. Dad spent the last 6 months of his life documenting everything. He knew he didn't have long. The doctors had already warned him about the heart issues getting worse. So he built 2 copies of the evidence, one digital, one physical. The digital version is encrypted inside my head, a 256-character passphrase only I know. The physical version is in the safe deposit box under your name. No cloud, no email, no external drives. If one of us goes down, the other still has the full picture. He changed lanes smoothly, cutting in front of a semi to take the President George Bush Turnpike exit. Inside that box are signed affidavits, bank records going back 12 years, audio files Dad recorded on a voice recorder whenever Trish or Ryan cornered him in his office, and a handwritten timeline of every threat they made. He even kept the original lab report from the private toxicologist who confirmed the medication they were switching was slowly poisoning him. I felt sick. Dad hadn't died of natural causes. He had been murdered over years, one altered pill at a time, while I sat across from Trish at Thanksgiving, smiling like nothing was wrong. Mason glanced over. He made me promise I'd only bring you into this when they finally framed you. This morning was the trigger. They moved faster than even he predicted. We passed Legacy Drive, and the suburbs started thinning into office parks and construction zones. Mason eased off the gas, a little blending into the flow of white work trucks and delivery vans. The jammer's red light blinked steadily on the dash. Plano is 20 minutes from here if we stay off the main cameras, he continued. The bank doesn't open the vault area to law enforcement without a specific warrant for that exact box number, and Dad paid cash for 10 years up front. Even if the FBI freezes your accounts, they can't freeze physical access until they know which branch and which box. We have a window. I watched the speedometer hover at 65 while my entire life unraveled behind us. The only sound was the low hum of tires on concrete and the occasional click of the turn signal when Mason changed lanes without warning. He reached over and squeezed my hand for half a second, the first real contact we'd had in almost a decade. We're going to finish what Dad started, he said quietly. Then we disappear for good if we have to. But first, we get what's in that box. I nodded, staring straight ahead at the flat North Texas skyline, and realized running wasn't the scary part anymore. The scary part was what we were about to prove. Just after 2 p.m., we reached the private banking center in Plano. Mason parked 2 blocks away in a public garage, and we walked the rest of the distance under the brutal Texas sun. The building looked more like a law firm than a bank. Smoked glass. No signage except a discreet brass plate that read, Legacy Trust Services. Dad had chosen it for exactly that reason. Nothing about it screamed money. Inside, the air conditioning hit like a wall. A security officer checked our IDs against a pre-approved list Dad had apparently updated months earlier because my name was already there. He let us pass the regular tellers down a hallway lined with abstract art to the vault area. Another officer waited beside a steel door that required 2 keys and a retinal scan. When it swung open, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. We were taken to a small private room with a metal table and a locked drawer built into the wall. The officer slid box 1847 across the table, asked me to place my right thumb on the biometric pad, then stepped outside and closed the door. A soft click told us we were alone. I entered the 6-digit code Dad had made me memorize as a child, my birthday backwards. The lid released with a quiet hiss. The first thing I pulled out was 4 handwritten pages folded together and secured with the same rubber band Dad always used. His familiar scrawl covered every inch. I recognized the date at the top, 3 weeks before he died. He apologized for keeping secrets, explained why he had to send Mason away, and ended with a single line that made my eyes burn. Forgive me for not being strong enough to stop them sooner. Use everything in this box to finish it. Next came a small black USB drive in a plastic case. Mason plugged it into the secure laptop the bank provided for vault clients. Hundreds of emails and text messages appeared between Dad and his private cardiologist, Dr. Leonard Carver, a man Dad had trusted for almost 20 years. The chain started in early 2022, when Dad first noticed symptoms that didn't match his prescribed medication. Dr. Carver had ordered independent blood work and discovered gradually increasing levels of a compound that should never have been in his system, a synthetic drug that mimics heart failure when taken long-term. Tucked beneath the drive was the original lab report on heavy cream-colored paper with the clinic's embossed seal. Dr. Carver had kept the physical copy himself instead of entering it into the hospital system because he suspected tampering. A yellow sticky note in his handwriting read, "Gregory asked me to hold this off record until he decided what to do." At the bottom of the box lay a tiny digital voice recorder no bigger than a matchbox. Mason pressed play, and Dad's voice filled the small room weaker than I remembered but perfectly clear. For 4 straight minutes he listed dates and times. March 14, 2022, when Trish brought new pills to the lake house and watched him swallow the first dose. August 3, 2023, when Ryan locked the office door and threatened to expose an old tax issue unless Dad signed over additional voting shares. November 11, 2024, when both of them stood over him in the study and swapped his prescription bottle while he pretended to sleep. Every word was calm, factual, devastating. The final item was a single flash drive containing one Excel file titled Revisions. When opened, it showed 37 separate entries stretching from 2011 to 2024. Each one a change to the company books that moved assets into accounts controlled by Trish or Ryan. Dad had digitally signed every page with a timestamp that could not be altered. We sat in silence for a long moment after the recorder clicked off. Everything we needed to prove murder and long-term fraud was now in our hands, created by the one person who had seen it coming and still couldn't save himself. Mason carefully returned each item exactly as we found it, closed the lid, and spun the lock. The officer reopened the door without a word and escorted us out. As we stepped back into the afternoon heat, I felt the weight of the envelope copies in my purse and knew the next move would destroy whatever was left of the family I once believed in. That night, I made the call I knew would end everything. We were in a small Airbnb Mason had booked under a fake name 20 miles north of Dallas. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional bark of a neighbor's dog. I sat on the edge of the bed with a burner phone in one hand and the voice recorder app already running. Mason stood by the window watching the street. He gave me a single nod. I dialed Trish's private cell, the one she only answered for family. She picked up on the second ring. "Who is this?" Her voice was sharp, irritated. "It's me, Trish." I kept my tone flat. "We need to talk." Silence stretched for 3 full seconds. Then she laughed, that cold, familiar laugh I'd heard my entire life. "Brielle, I heard you had a busy day. Running around with that ghost of a brother. How cute." "You framed me for $58 million this morning," I said. "You used my voice, my car, my keycard. You murdered Dad. And you thought I'd just disappear." Another laugh, louder this time. "Oh, sweetheart. You still don't get it, do you? That money is already gone. Layered through so many shells, even the FBI will need years to trace it. And every single transfer has your signature on it. Your voice, your pretty little face on camera. You think turning over some old letters and a doctor's note changes anything." I glanced at Mason. He mouthed, "Keep her talking." "You poisoned him for years," I said quietly. "You watched him die slowly so you could take what wasn't yours." Trish's voice dropped to a hiss. "He was weak. Always was. Your father should have retired gracefully instead of clinging to shares he didn't deserve. We gave him every chance. And when he wouldn't sign them over, we helped him along," she said, almost bored. "Really, Brielle, you think you're going to walk away from this, even if they catch us, and they won't. That money will always have your name on it. You'll spend the rest of your life explaining why $58 million disappeared under your watch. Good luck finding a jury that believes the poor little heiress was framed. I closed my eyes and let the words burn into the recording. Thank you, Trish. That's all I needed. The line went dead. Within 30 minutes, I had emailed encrypted copies of everything. Dad's letter, the lab report, the voice recording from the vault, the Excel file, and the fresh 12-minute call. To 2 addresses, the official tip line of the FBI Dallas field office, and to Sarah Whitmore, the Wall Street Journal investigative reporter, who had covered Dawson Holdings for a decade. I attached a short note, full chain of custody available upon request, victim willing to testify. Mason watched the sent folder confirm delivery, then smashed both burners with a hammer and dropped the pieces into a bowl of bleach. 24 hours later, my phone lit up with push notifications. Trish and Ryan had been arrested at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport while boarding a private Gulfstream bound for Grand Cayman. Live news footage showed them in handcuffs, Trish screaming about lawsuits, while Ryan stared blankly at the terminal floor. The charges read like a novel-wire fraud money laundering conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder, in the death of Gregory Dawson. The U.S. attorney called it one of the largest family fraud cases in Texas history. 3 weeks after that, in a quiet law office in Bend, Oregon, I signed the papers creating the Dawson Irrevocable Trust. Every remaining legitimate asset went into it, with Mason named co-trustee and myself as lifetime beneficiary. The house in Frisco was sold. The company was placed into receivership. I changed my phone number, closed every social account, and deleted every photo that still had Whitaker faces in it. We settled in a cedar house on 5 acres outside Bend, where the air smells like pine, and the loudest sound at night is the river. Mason bought the lot next door under a new name. Some mornings we drink coffee on the porch and don't say anything for an hour. That silence feels like healing. Trish took a plea to avoid the death penalty and will die in prison. Ryan is fighting the charges, but the evidence is airtight. I never visited either of them. I didn't attend Trish's sentencing. I won't attend her funeral when the day comes. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the person who risks everything to pull you out of a burning house you didn't know was on fire. That's the real story. Greed can wear a familiar face and speak with a loving voice until the mask slips. If someone in your life suddenly turns on you, trust the warning signs. Trust the sibling you haven't spoken to in years. And never underestimate what people will do for money they believe is already theirs. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this ever happens to someone you know, share this story. Leave a comment and tell me. Have you ever discovered a betrayal that changed everything? I read every single one. I'm Brielle Dawson, and this is how I took my life back.